And before we introduce the candidates, I want to give you just a little information about tonight's format. First, over the course of the election season, we got a lot of questions in our earlier county council debates, which I used to frame some of the questions tonight. We also got some questions that were specific to tonight's debate that we'll be asking. A lot of the questions that I'm going to ask are sort of questions that I tried to frame around oftentimes what several readers showed interest in. So know that most of these questions were inspired by readers and maybe a couple from our staff. Whatever the questions are, though, I'm the one who's responsible for picking them. I didn't share any of the questions with anybody here, so just so you know that. Nobody got an inside peek or anything like that, unless they came back behind the podium when I wasn't looking earlier. So during the debate tonight, it's kind of round robin. We'll go from one candidate to the other. Each will be given the same amount of time, generally 90 seconds to respond to each question, or that's how much time they'll have if they want it. Through the course of the debate, the goal is for each candidate to have the same number of questions first and the same amount of time. If a question comes up that they want to respond to the other candidate after they both respond, if they bring up somebody's record or that sort of thing, they'll certainly be given an opportunity to do that. Generally speaking, for the candidates, that would be like a minute or 30 seconds, depending on how much time you need. But not to, and if you need to go back and forth a couple times, we'll allow that before we go to the next question. Just keep in mind, though, the more you do that, first of all, the better the debate. But secondly, you know, then we could stay later. I'm kidding.
Nice.
All right. And to make sure we stay on time, we have a timekeeper. He is our Deputy Managing Editor of Digital, John Gallus. John? And so candidates, when John holds up his yellow card, that means you have 30 seconds to finish speaking. When he holds up the red card, that means you need to bring your comments to a close, and if you don't, then I'll help you. So, with that, let's introduce the candidates in alphabetical order. Mike Arminio lives in Port Orange, and he is the owner of Brizel Blinds in South Daytona. He served for 11 years on the Port Orange Planning Board and is a president and board member, was president and is board member of the Riverside Pavilion. He's also a board member of the Port Orange Family Days Community Trust. This is his, I believe, first run for county office.
For county, yes.
And with that, Mike, welcome to the debate. Deb Denys is the District 3 incumbent, a position she has held since, I believe it was elected in 2012, but since 2013. She's also the current vice chair of the council. Deb also was on the Volusia County School Board from 1994 to 1998. She is also vice chair of the Indian River Lagoon Council. Deb's a retired MetLife representative, and she lives here in New Smyrna Beach. Deb, welcome to tonight's debate. All right, so let's get to the questions. And the first question goes, we flipped a coin beforehand and Mike gets the first question. So Mike, as we sit here tonight, the Mosquito Lagoon system is suffering through another algae outbreak. One big issue is the number of failing septic systems along the lagoon in Volusia County. And those septic systems leak phosphorus and nitrogen into the lagoon system, into the water system. This has been a long identified problem, and yet a place like Oak Hill can't obtain state funding to address septic tanks in that area. With all that, here's a question from reader Bob Augusto. What specifically is your plan to eliminate septic systems, stormwater runoff, and fertilizers that are harming Mosquito Lagoon?
Well, one of the things in Edgewater right now, raw sewage has been dumped into the lagoon for I don't know how many years. It hasn't been addressed, and that's one thing right away needs to be addressed. As far as septic tanks, there are grant money available for us. We have a lobbyist who has sent emails to this council many times and asking them and begging them to take the money to help people get off septic. It's a very expensive project. I mean, it's a very, the whole thing is very expensive. And either replacing the septic with new or changing it over to city sewer. And that's what, you've got to be proactive when these things come around. And when you have that money available, you got to really reach out and grab it. And as far as the algae bloom, I mean, that comes from what I understand, is coming from like a Okeechobee. That needs to be worked on at the state level, along with the cities, the counties around us, to make sure that that doesn't come that far up. Again, I think it's as far as Cocoa Beach right now, and I think they found a dead dolphin in the shore area, and they're doing testing on that dolphin right now to see where it came from. It's from algae bloom or it was just something natural. But we got to be proactive, especially with our environment. Our economy depends on it.
All right, thank you. Deb?
Thanks, Mike. Okay, so this past Friday, we had a meeting at the New Smyrna Beach Library on a reasonable assurance plan, working with the county and our three cities, and the stakeholders in the reasonable assurance plan is the county, the city of Edgewater, New Smyrna, Oak Hill, and FDOT, collaborating with the Florida Department of Environmental Protection, our IRL council, which is 5 counties, both water management districts. So what we're looking at in the reasonable assurance plan is a faster path to restoration. And the DEP District Secretary, Drew Bartlett, I spoke with him last week, and what we're really looking at is decreasing those nutrient loads that are going into the water. As far as Oak Hill goes, I will tell you, last year we had $200,000 in the budget for Oak Hill in design and engineering. This year we've increased it another $200,000 to $400,000. Volusia County is very much a partner. We're at the table. We had no relief at the legislative level, unfortunately. So the county said, we're going to do what we need to do, because there's some low-hanging fruit, very honestly, in Oak Hill that we can make a pretty dramatic impact in converting them from septic to sewer. So I'm definitely at the table, and Vice Chair of the Indian River Lagoon Council, and working on it continuously. Thank you.
Okay. Deb, you get the next question then. And since it was brought up, I'll just go to that question now. The county recently decided to release the lobbyist that it had used for the last 4 years, I believe. On the way out the door, that lobbyist was sharply critical of the county for its efforts to go after funding. My question is, has the county done an adequate job of trying to use its lobbyist to secure federal or state funding?
I think your key there is that the lobbyist was critical of the county for terminating a contract for non-performance. That's literally what it was. So here's the Volusia County Council, not just a federal lobbyist, but the state lobbyist. Here's the thinking of council that has been under-discussed. Council decided, we all know, come January 2019, we will have a new state legislature, we'll have a new governor. At the federal level, we will have a new congressman. Everything is changing come January 2019. Council decided we wanted to position Volusia County in the strongest way possible and have our new lobbyist in position to posture for Volusia County with this new legislature in 2019 and at the federal level. And that's when the decision was made to terminate our federal lobbyist. We've already hired a new state lobbyist, and we'll be looking at some options. And the lobbyist that we chose not to, actually he chose not to rebid. It was out on an RSQ. He could have rebid, he chose not to rebid, and then it's just a lobbyist that didn't perform. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mike?
From what I understand, it was James Pericola was the lobbyist in question, and yeah, he was going out the door because he was so frustrated with the county not taking the grants that he found that were available for opiate abuse and for septic to sewer. And so when that happens, when you're working for somebody and they don't give you credit or they don't, take what you're giving them, then, you get frustrated and you quit. I mean, that's just what happens. I mean, and unfortunately, from what I understand, that's what was happening.
Can I respond?
Yes, go ahead.
Well, I'd like to clarify that he didn't quit. We terminated his contract for lack of performance, and it was not a grant. It was a loan under the USDA, and the city of Oak Hill would have to qualify under 4 tenants of that loan. They don't qualify out of 2, and the first one actually shocked us because we were working with this particular project, and the mayor, and you see Jan McGee, City of Oak Hill principal, she's shaking her head yes. Mayor Gibson had an appointment with Senator Simmons this past week on this. Here's the one thing, there's 4 tenants of that particular loan, that's not a grant, that they would have had to qualify for, and one was low income. To our shock and amazement, Oak Hill's average income is $52,000 per capita. And when I challenged that and worked with the city of Oak Hill and their clerk, I said, how can this be? It's the census numbers. It's the census numbers that's recorded. So Oak Hill is out on 2 of those. It's not a grant, it was a loan, cloaked, and I'm going to make no more excuses for a lobbyist who didn't perform.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mike, this question goes to you. Jim Denys resigned as county manager in June, and the county council is in the beginning stages of finding a replacement for him. What qualities do you think the next county manager needs to bring to that position?
Well, one of the things is to be a transparent manager. It was obvious to a lot of people that Jim Denys kept a lot of things hidden from either council or from us. And this is we work in the sunshine in the state. So that would be the most important thing, is someone who's going to make sure that council is aware of anything that's going on, from not just from a day-to-day basis, but major things that are coming up that you need to be aware of. That's one of the characteristics. I think we're lucky. I live in Port Orange, and we had that search, for city manager, and we got Jake Johansson, and he's been a blessing to our city. I mean, he has created a team atmosphere in Port Orange, and that's what we need. We need a guy who's going to rally the troops to fix the problems we have, be aggressive with it, proactive once again, and get things done. So that's what the qualities that I look for in a new county manager. It works for the county council, not the other way around.
Thank you. Deb?
Well, first of all, I'm looking for a guy or a gal, whoever's gonna best qualified to fit for Volusia County and our citizens as we start this process. We're looking at a consultant, going to review that, and one that is fiscally responsible and truly transparent. But this has been my phrase the last year, that's going to let the council be the council. If you have followed me, if you followed the issues, you've seen me on more than one time challenge the manager on why council didn't have more information. Hopefully we'll talk about some of those issues. I don't want to get ahead of you here, but I'm looking for somebody that's got strong management skills and a track record of working not just with the council, but here in Volusia County we have an airport, we have the beaches, we've got some, and the Florida Sunshine Law, we have some issues that a lot of managers have never had to manage. So there's many things that I'm going to be looking at with their skill set going forward, he or she.
All right, thanks. And Deb, this next question goes to you.
Oh, me?
Yes, and this is from a reader, Tom Weber. And it's really 2 questions, his and then mine, because I think there needs to be a little balance to it. But his question is, what are you going to do to address the lack of ambulances and low firefighting staffing levels in the county and the cities? My addition to that is, does Volusia County have adequate emergency medical and ambulance services for its citizens right now?
Well, that is the issue of the day, and there's been a lot of, unfortunately, some he said, she said things playing out. So out of sheer frustration, I met August 10th at the Emergency Ops Center, called a meeting to get exactly those answers. So our system here is a 2-tiered system with fire and EMS. And I'll tell you, with the citizens, they don't care who gets there first. They don't care what patch they wear. They don't care what truck shows up. They want the care. So talking about this whole process, where we're going forward, and what's true, what's not. Let's filter it. So at this meeting was Dr. Springer, he's the medical director for Volusia County, Mike Semple, the EVAC operations manager, George Rechtenwald, Mark Wolcott, our Director for Emergency Medical Administration, Jim Judge, our great Director for Division of Emergency Management, Terry Sanders, who then was our Director of Department of Public Protection. Here's the goal. Our goal is to aggressively resuscitate in early intervention. It's not about getting on a truck. Focus is on scene treatment. It's a progressive event. First, you stay in the scene, provide treatment. It's not always a scoop and transport, and then we have to evaluate which hospital to transport to. It's a multi-tiered issue. Are we working on it? We're working on it. And I think you know Mr. Rechtenwald is meeting with 2 of our fire chiefs, a couple of our city managers, including, I believe, Mr. Johansson from the city of Port Orange, to take a look at how we can strengthen the system.
Thank you. Mike?
Well, my solution to that is we moved EMS underneath fire services. We staff it with firefighter paramedics, so the county gets credit for 2 firefighters with that truck. They can be rotated. You know, when EMS started out as a nonprofit, we had 27 ambulances that were running in the county. We now have 17 with a much larger population, so we have to fix it. We got to work on it. That system right there works for 72% of the state. 72% of the fire stations in the state have that system. It works. It's efficient. It's safer for citizens. You know, faster response times. So when you have a guy coming out, or you have 2 guys coming out with a truck transport, you've got a firefighter paramedic, so they can go with the truck or they can come out by themselves. So it's a system that works. The cities that have invested in transport, Port Orange being the newest, they can buy into this system and they can be a part of it. And they can do the same thing, firefighter, paramedic for the cities, so they can count 2 more firefighters per however many they have. It's something that can be done. It can be implemented over a 1 to 2 year time period, but you know, it's obvious that it's not working well the way we have it right now. So I think that would be, and this is talking to a specialist, somebody who specializes in this type of thing, and the information is correct from him. So I think it can be done. I mean, I know it can be done. It's just a matter of doing it.
All right, thank you. And Mike, this next question goes to you. So earlier this year, at a roundtable of cities meeting, a former county council member suggested that trust in Volusia County government has never been lower. Now, some thought that characterization was unfair, but others at that meeting nodded their heads in agreement. A big issue, and it's been alluded to already, seems to be transparency. So the question is, do you think county government has lost some of its citizens' trust, and how does it need to be more transparent, and what needs to be done to restore that trust?
Well, yeah, I hear that a lot, Pat, you know, out there talking to folks in this district and in other places as well. Yeah, they have lost trust. I've lost trust. That's why I'm running. I've lost trust in my county government because I don't know what's coming down the pipe. What other thing is going to come to the surface? What are, you know, like the ME's office, you know, you've got all these things that were hidden from the public. You know, you got to fix stuff. You know, like I said, be proactive when things come up on you. Now, whether or not it was the county manager's fault or the county council's fault or a little bit of both, but the folks in this county, in this district especially, are very unhappy with the way their county government runs. We keep on finding things out after the fact, and then we get told that, oh, it's not that big of a deal. Well, there's a lot of big deals that have been happening in this county, you know, and I'm not blaming the council. I'm not blaming the county manager, but they're the ones who are in control of all these issues that we're finding out after the fact that we have to fix. And we're patching them. We're not fixing them. We're just patching them to go on to the next cycle. So that's my view, my opinion from talking to people out there on the campaign trail.
All right, thank you. Deb?
Thank you. First of all, there is a degree. We have to earn back the trust and transparency. We're in that shift right now. And again, if you followed me, you have heard me say and asked for and championed a need for an internal audit, forensic audit. And what council settled on was hiring an internal auditor that will report directly to council. Do we have issues? Of course we do. We're a very large county, of course we are. But to say we're patching the problems and moving on is not an accurate statement of where we are. Let's take the ME's office, medical examiner's office. When that first came to light and we went to, I called the state medical examiner to find out what question do I ask. I know nothing about medical examination, nor should I, very honestly. It's the day-to-day operations. I said, so what question do I ask? What do I need to ask to get the answers to fix this? How do we hold this accountable? So he sent in Dr. John Thogmartin to the county, and since that time, we have privatized it. Thogmartin fixed that ME's office, medical examiner's office, in 4 days. He internalized controls. He fixed things. It was an internal management problem with the former ME. It has been fixed. It is working and firing in all pistons, and it was after 4 days. So nobody's ignoring anything. We're addressing it as we can. And do we have it all right? Of course we don't. You never do.
All right, thank you.
But that's a temporary fix. I mean, it's a 6-month contract. It's not a long-term contract. From what I understand, it's like $700,000 or something like that for a 6-month contract. So we have to, the problem could have been just 4 days. He's the one this is a guy who came in and did the actual, investigation first when these allegations came forward. And for us to come back and hire the same guy who did this, I mean, it seems it just didn't seem set right with me and a lot of people. So that right there is the issue. Now, what are we going to do going forward? What are we going to extend this contract? Is it going to be a longer contract? How much is it going to be? Is it going to be a cost savings or a cost us more? So that is a question that I have.
Did you want to respond also to that?
I absolutely do. First of all, that could all be answered if you heard Dr. Thogmartin present to the county council, and the county council's agenda is part of the public record and part of the minutes. So yes, he's on a temporary contract to this point until we hire the permanent medical examiner. It's part of the transition. But here's part of what has happened since then. The former ME would go in to do a procedure, an examination, suit up, take the suit off, go and then write up the report. Suit up again, do the exam, take the suit off, write it up. Took forever. This ME, Dr. Thogmartin, suits up once, has everything electronic, describes it right into the technology, can do 7 or 8 in one day and be done. And the former ME would not work weekends. Our ME's facility is open 7 days a week. There's a lot of internal things that were cleaned up. Who knows about that until there's an issue? But this is all very public record. It has been fixed. To say it's not is giving an absolute misrepresentation.
All right, we're going to go on to the next question. And this one goes to you, Deb. Volusia County has had an interesting discussion about impact fees this year. First, and this was back in February, I believe, everyone on the council agreed they didn't need adjustment even though they haven't been increased since 2003. Then when impact fees were brought up again, a 2016 report, it was a preliminary report, but nonetheless a report that suggested increasing them was withheld from the council's initial discussion. Now the council has another report that suggests increasing impact fees, and it's under study. So 2 questions. Is the county council taking too long to decide about impact fees, and should they be increased?
Well, first of all, we're in process, and I think I believe it's this week, on the 24th, right here in this room, will be a hearing on impact fees. The impact fee study will be presented for public input. We're going to have 4 meetings this week to get the input, to bring it back to council to make a decision. Do they need to be increased? Absolutely, they do. How that's implemented is the key. Do we do it in phases? Do we do it over 2 or 3 years? What that looks like, I'm not really sure, but as soon as we get all that information, and we have to do it, we have to advertise for 90 days, or we will have lawsuits from every element that will take us longer to implement anything. And remember, an impact fee is actually a pass-through account. that comes through to the buyer, to whoever's building their home. So we want to make sure we get this done right and on target. So that we're in the middle of it. We're in the middle of it right now, Pat.
All right, thank you. Mike?
Did you ask if impact fees should be increased? Yeah, absolutely. I got the study in front of me. I mean, from 2003 to now, we're paying, impact fees are being collected on 2007 numbers. In 2011, it was suspended because of the economy. We understand that. I mean, it's a horrible thing, but we had those from 2011 to 2013. There were no impact fees collected at all. So you got those 2 years you lost, of collecting impact fees. So you get further behind with your infrastructure needs. Granted, impact fees only work around 3 miles around a project where it impacts. So you're limited to what you can use it for, but it'll go a long way. Say like Margarita or Latitudes and Mosaic Alpha LPGA. Just think about the amount of money that could be collected to help around that situation that we have in that area. In this report, some of the impact fees are as much as 100% or double of what that we have right now. Some of them are even more. Like in the study they did, I think there was 8 other counties that they did around us, similar counties, and we're the lowest or the second lowest in every category in impact fees. So absolutely they have to be raised. We can't hit developers all at one shot. It's not their fault that we didn't act on it, but we have to start doing it now. And like Deb said, I said the same thing on Bernier. It should be over a 2 to 3 year period, an incremental, but we got to do it. And we got to do it pretty quick. I mean, we have the 90 days, yes. But if we drag it out for 6 months to a year, you don't think developers are going to be lining up trying to jam their projects in before this is increased. And I would, if I was a developer, I would. So we need to get this going, get it done. I'm glad the county is taking input from the citizens in the 4 districts. I think that's a good thing. But we need to act on it and get going on it, and get the information, get the data collected, and take the vote. Sorry.
Okay. Yeah.
I wouldn't even look at.
John, John's a polite fellow, but don't try his patience. All right, Mike, this question goes to you, so just hang on to the mic. So Volusia County was poised to place a half-cent sales tax on the November ballot that, if passed, would have brought more than $40 million a year in for road, drainage, other infrastructure needs. The proposed tax wasn't placed on the ballot in the wake of reaction to what the county did regarding impact fees and some of the blowback that came with that. But the need for that infrastructure still exists. When you're building thousands of homes along I-95 in West Volusia and with no sign that that growth is going to slow, you need infrastructure improvements. So with that in mind, should that half-cent sales tax be considered by voters in 2019 or perhaps 2020? Why or why not? I'm
not for even looking at putting an increase in sales tax until we look at impact fees and what they can do. Asking for another half-cent sales tax, we maxed out our gas tax with that same sales pitch many years ago. And so where is all the new infrastructure that, fixing the old infrastructure coming from with the gas tax? The impact fees, like I said, what they have in this report, there's a lot of disturbing things in this report about not collecting those impact fees for so many years or keeping it at a low level for so many years. The only one who's really benefiting is the people who are moving in here and the developers who are having to charge as much for their homes for impact fee. But impact has to pay for itself. I mean, because a lot of these areas where the impact fees are collected are areas that need new road systems, need sidewalks, need infrastructure needs. Then and only then, because I definitely don't see doing a special election in 2019 and paying that kind of money just to put one thing on the ballot and put it out there. So that's up to the council. If they want to put a sales tax on the agenda or put it on to a referendum and put it out there for the voters, that's fine. But I can tell you right now, from talking to people, and myself included, they would not pass.
Place it on the ballot, but this is a request from our cities, from your cities, including the New Smyrna and the cities in the district that I represent. So do we need a half-cent sales tax? Well, let's, the last year, I just got the numbers from FY17, the gas tax, you alluded to the gas tax. 24, almost 25 million came in. Well, okay, it takes 3.7 million today to put in 1 mile of one road. So let's put 1 mile in going this way and that way. You're up to 7.4 million. So just from the gas tax, 25 million, we can do 3.5 miles. That's it on all of the gas tax. Do we need a house and sales tax? The citizens are going to have to decide if they want to do that, but it is driven absolutely by the cities. They will come forward back to the council, elected leaders roundtable. It's great meetings. If you go, you'll hear the discussion among the cities, and they request it. So we'll see where this goes after the impact fee analysis.
Sort of a related question, yes, to you, Deb. So you're correct that impact fees, you could triple or quadruple them and they wouldn't cover the necessary costs to keep up with infrastructure needs.
True.
So if the county voters don't approve a half-cent tax, how will the county pay for its infrastructure needs, which are only going to become more acute as we grow?
That's the question of the day, Pat, and that's kind of how it has to be framed. And if I can add to that, I'll tell you how important. I just rotated off as chair of the Flagler Volusia Transportation Planning Organization. 2 counties, all of our cities in Flagler and Volusia, and the 2 school districts. When we were in the throes of this with the elected leaders roundtable and the house and sales tax, I was concerned because as chair of the Transportation Planning Organization, we weren't at the table, and our executive director wasn't at the table in these discussions. We have a 2040 long-range transportation plan with the Federal Highway Association and Florida Department of Transportation that gets funded through our organization. And some of these projects and roads that we saw coming in were on already our LRTP plan. So out of concern, I called in the CEO Alliance. The CEO Alliance, we met with Hyatt Brown, Kent Sharples, and Glenn Ritchie, myself as chair of the TPO, and my executive director, Lois Bolenbach. We brought them into our office in Daytona Beach, and we said, here's our long-range transportation plan. We have got to look at this together and make sure we're doing the right thing at the right time, and we're not duplicating, but we can really use our services, but we've got to be at the table. So there's more dimensions out of genuine concern for success going forward in this discussion.
All right, thank you. Mike?
What was the question?
The question is that if you don't pass a half-cent sales tax or something that raises, an equivalent amount of money, which would be about $40 million a year is what they estimated with it, then how is the county going to pay for the many infrastructure needs that are already acute in some areas and are only going to become more acute?
Well, I mean, the gas tax, from what I understand, part of the gas tax is paying off the $64 million bond debt. And that's a concern there. I mean, it's down to $27 million. I think the bond debt's down to that now. But, looking at our taxes that we have in this county, we're one of either second or third highest tax in the state. And that's difficult, I mean, it's just, people are so tired of taxes, having taxes and being taxed. So we have to look at ways to fund these things without continuing to hit people with more taxes.
Go ahead, Deb.
First of all, let's go on the record here. If you're going to say Volusia County is the second or third highest tax county in the state, you have to drill down the part that I'm responsible for and that I vote for and voted for a complete rollback with no increase in the millage in 2018. I championed that effort, and we had successful unanimous vote at the county council on that. But for what we're responsible for, Volusia County's general fund, we're number 44 in the state. Go to Department State of Revenue, you can document that. So it only becomes 2 or 3, if that's actually true at this stage. When you add the school board, you add the hospital authorities, you add every other taxing authority on. I have no control over that. The county has no control over that. But what I control and what I vote for you, if you look at your ad valorem bill, it will be the same because we champion that and it's important. So just keep the perspective, please.
All right, Mike, did you want to respond, or do you have a you get the next question.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So this election season, in particular during some of the impact fee discussion, this election season, developers or those in related industries have spent pretty significant money supporting some council candidates. There's been at least sort of a sense that some people in the development community were close to the county manager's office, county government as well. So the question is, do you think developers have too much influence in Volusia County?
Well, I mean, I'm not going to, point fingers or anything like that, but if you look at her work, her campaign chest, you can see it's just chock full of developers and high crowns and people like that. So you just kind of wonder, but that's all I can tell you. I mean, that's what the perception is. It looks that way. You look at her campaign finance report, you see all these names and where they filter to, and that's what it does look like. And on every, in this race and races prior to this, and it seems like there is a new influence there, especially when impact fees are a part of this thing right now with what we're talking about, trying to look at increasing them. Because 2 years ago, it came back, what we understand was flawed. So why wasn't it back then 2 years ago, why wasn't that brought up, okay, turn around, we want you to fix the flawed data so we can see it, so we can look at it, and we can pass the increase now. So it should have been done like 2 years ago, when that came forward.
All right, thank you. Deb?
Okay, first of all, when you contribute to a campaign, it's freedom of speech. Do I have support? I do. Is it continuing every day? It is. Every campaign, election cycle, or report, yes, I have a lot of support. I have 171 contributions as of today. 63 of those are smaller, the smaller dollar of $100 or less. But I have 171 donations, my opponent has 19. So if you want to take a look at what the real numbers are and what it means, I have triple the number of small dollar contributions than my opponent has in total contributions. So if you want to look at the real picture, and the developers, the big bad developers, I was at an event and a gentleman, I heard my voice say, Deb, I need to talk to you. It was a developer who never wrote me a check, for the record. He said, I want you to know, now that the economy is doing well, I've had to before lay off in the recession, lay off my workers at 20, 30, 40 hours. I can consistently give my employees 40, 50, 60 hours. And I just had one of my guys that have been with me for years come to me and thank me because now he and his wife bought their first home. He works for a developer. Economy is money in motion. Developers are a pass-through account with the economy for all of our workers here in Volusia County. And I appreciate the support.
All right, thank you. The next question does go to you, Mike.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry. The back and forth got me,
Yeah, you got
which isn't very difficult to do. So, all right, this one goes to you, Deb. So the city of New Smyrna Beach is asking taxpayers to approve a $15 million bond that would go toward protecting undeveloped land along Turnbull Creek, a large portion of which is already slated for development. This is also a county issue because the city's plan, if the bond passes, would be to ask the county for ECHO funds to help in the purchase of some land. That's part of their plan. It's not something that they've asked for, but I know that they've spoken to the interim county manager about that. So what is your position on the city's bond issue? And if it passes, would you support providing ECHO funds to help the city purchase land?
First of all, there's a lot of ifs in there, Pat. It has to go to the voters, as you know.
Hey, I'm asking the question.
I know you are, but I have to answer them, so I can't do a whole lot with ifs. So should the citizens of New Smyrna Beach approve a bond referendum for this, then if the city, it's going to take years as I understand it, if they go and request a grant from ECHO, it will go through the same process that everybody else does, a level playing field. And then if the ECHO Advisory Board recommends it and it scores within the threshold, if that then occurs, it will come to the county council. And then if the council thinks that it's a good project, it will get voted on We do not discriminate against every other project countywide. So after you get through all those ifs, we'll see what happens.
So do you support the bond issue? And would you support ECHO funds if it passes?
If it passes a process, sure. It's a process of government, sure. If the people voted in, certainly.
Okay, thank you. Mike?
Well, I'm with Deb on that because there are a lot of ifs. But with ECHO funds, I think that's what ECHO funds are really supposed to be about. Just it's one of the major things that ECHO was formed for. So if, like she said, if the bond issue passes here in New Smyrna, then when it goes to all the way through the cycle of everywhere it's got to go, then when it comes to council, it has to be weighed against other projects and which one is more important. And so you have to weigh those options as well. So it's a difficult question to ask because it's so far in the future and so many things have to fall in line in order for you to even see it at a county level.
Okay. I want to ask if you, do you support it, even though I know you're in Port Orange, in theory, do you support that sort of bond issue for that sort of?
Well, I grew up here,
idea?
so anything that you can do to preserve, I'm for. I mean, I grew up here and I see a lot of the growth that's going on since I left in New Smyrna, 40 some years ago. And, some of it's good, some of it isn't so good. And I see a lot of stuff coming down the pike. So if there's a way to do some preservation, possibly, it just depends on, what the vote, it's going to be up to the voters, it's going to be up to them. So that'll be a decision that's made far into the future, I think, as far as it coming from the county council.
Okay, thanks. This question goes to you, Mike. I almost hate to bring it up, but I will. Beach driving. I bring it up just because it's always the third rail, right? And it's been that way for Volusia County, but it's not an issue that's going to go away soon. But beyond higher-end hotels now wanting beach driving behind them, there are other factors that play into this. Sea level is rising, red sand's drifting southward, and then there are sea turtles in the federal government, and sometime around 2030, they're going to weigh in and be making decisions about whether to allow beach driving to continue or not. So with all of that going on, and looking 15 years down the road, what do you see as the future of beach driving?
Well, I certainly hope it's still here. I mean, if you look at New Smyrna, the core area of New Smyrna, and beach driving is probably the longest areas that you can drive as far as steady beach driving. It's not all chopped up like Daytona, but it's a vibrant place. This is what drew people here for many, many years. It still does. A lot of it's the beach driving. Daytona is been given, some of the private entities, the hotels have been given free beach behind them that can't be drivable. I think if Mother Nature takes it away, then that's what you got to deal with. I mean, that's just going to be what it is. But this whole area has been known for, as a kid, and ironically enough, New Smyrna is known as the world's safest beach, and then Daytona, the world's famous beach, and that's what we were known for. I mean, the beach driving. So to try to preserve it as much as we possibly can should be something that we do now, and make sure that we continue to have that tape permit when it comes up in 2030.
All right, thank you. Deb?
So is it a concern for 2030? Is that your question?
Yes. And those factors, how do they play into it?
It plays, all of it plays into it. That's why we just opened up, I think 2 weeks ago, finished Hiles Avenue off-beach parking. The council has several parcels countywide that we're looking at off-beach parking. We also have opened up every access point that we can for the beach. But we're talking about this an issue that almost stopped us in our tracks. We're doing the best we can, and hopefully we can keep that permit in 2030, but who knows what's going to happen. The biggest jeopardy we had just came out of this last legislative session with customary use. Customary use, that law that happened up in Tallahassee, gave the counties, the cities, the right, any waterfront property to create a barrier down to the high water line. You could literally, if you wanted to cross an oceanfront property, you had to go down to the water, past their barrier, across it, and then come up. It was birthed in Walton County, should have never happened. It should have been a countywide initiative. It went statewide. It went viral. That's our big, we think the threat is at the federal level and our 2030 take permit. Our biggest threat, but Volusia County, we postured strongly and we beat it. We got an exemption at the state for customary use. Volusia did. Flagler didn't. We were on top of it. We're protecting our beach access and we'll continue to do that.
All right, thank you. And Deb, this question goes to you. And someone suggested it's another third rail issue. But Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood has a less than positive relationship with the current council.
You're going to go there.
He said all current council members up for re-election should be defeated. He said the county needs an enema. And he suggested a need for a state or federal criminal investigation. And I know that he's made some personal comments as well. So with all that, what do you make of the sheriff's relationship with the council right now?
Ask the question again, Pat. I want to make sure I've got this one right.
All right, I'm going to ask you a little quicker.
Okay.
Volusia County Sheriff Mike Chitwood has a less than positive relationship with the current council. Indeed, he said all current council members up for election should be defeated. He said this county needs an enema. He suggested a need for a state or federal criminal investigation. With all that, what do you make of the sheriff's relationship with the council?
Well, first of all, any sheriff, if he thinks there's an investigation required, he's, of all people, has a right to, on speed dial to make that happen. I don't think he said a speed dial button, but there you go. So here's the thing with our sheriff. There's been a lot of political posturing and rhetoric, but here's the reality of it. This county council has worked well with the sheriff to support his crime-fighting agenda, and we have given him virtually everything he has requested. And the rank and file benefit from the council's decisions, starting with our approval of millions of dollars in the current budget to address our salary inequity called compression and pay hikes for not only our deputies but dispatch, including a 16.4% increase in his department this year, a $7.3 million increase. $7.3 million. Everything he's requested, he's received. Other requests approved by this council have included the sheriff's priorities such as new positions, an independent use of force study, privatizing our courthouse security, that was a big request, an electronic monitoring program for juvenile offenders, more than $500,000 to buy additional body cameras, new software for the crime center, funding for a homicide tip line, upgrading of the E911 system, establishment of our school guardian program as great partners, and continued funding for a crime-fighting DNA testing program. So step away from the political rhetoric, and everything the sheriff has asked for to be funded has been funded without question and above what has been asked for.
Thank you. Mike?
Well, not being on the council, it's kind of difficult to understand it. From the perception is that the sheriff and the council don't have a good relationship from things that we've seen in the public. And they're right. You know, anytime he's come for budget items, they haven't turned him down. But he's still 50 sheriff's deputies short in that department. But he is competing against other departments across the state. And from what I understand, all the departments are struggling trying to get recruits. You know, the increases in pay has been a long time coming. It will help in recruitment and it will help in retention. But it's been a long time coming, and it's good to see that they've actually done something there for the deputies, because these guys are strapped. You know, the only way these guys are making a lot of money, these guys are working the equivalent of 2 full-time jobs. They are strapped, you know, stretched thin. The guys are stretched thin. And you know, you got guys, you know, in Pearson and Seville, 1 to 2 deputies out there in separate cars, patrolling some hairy areas. I've seen some videos of some of the things that have happened in that area. Oak Hill, another one. They have problems on the trails with trash and drug issues. They don't have enough guys to go down there and do the adequate patrols that are needed. So, you know, these are things in the future that we have to get ahead of as well. But as far as his relationship, I mean, you know, he's a colorful guy. I mean, he's going to do what Mike Chipwood does. But, you know, as far as when he's asked the council or the county manager, he has gotten what he's asked for. I mean, I can't lie. I mean,
All right. Well, I want to ask one more sheriff-related question, but it's really a question about one of the amendments, Amendment 10. And this goes to you, Mike. Amendment 10, if voters pass it, will give the county, Volusia County's constitutional officers, budget and other autonomy from the county manager's office that they currently don't have. Those offices will include the sheriff, property appraiser, and the county clerk. Are you for Amendment 10 or against it? Why or why not?
well, I mean, I think for Amendment 10, I'm actually am for it. I mean, we're one of a few in the state that don't have a constitutional sheriff or constitutional offices. We actually elect these guys or gals for these offices, but the county manager is the one who can, you know, controls what their budgets are. So you know, it's one of those things that's kind of difficult because what is it changing? Is it going to change anything? As far as, you know, if like Mike Chipwood said before, if, you know, you don't like the way I'm running my office, then you fire me in 4 years, you know, and same with the other positions. So as far as the constitutional part of it, I just think as a voter, you know, it's kind of a weird relationship, I think, between the county manager and an elected official where he's actually in charge of that department. You know what I mean? It's just kind of confusing.
All right, good. Deb, same question to you.
Well, what's not being discussed here is Volusia County is a charter county. Our voters, twice, we voted in a charter for Volusia County. So what's going to happen with Amendment 10, you've taken the voting rights from Volusia citizens and you've turned them over to Tampa, you've turned them over to Miami, you've turned them over to Tallahassee and Jacksonville, and overriding possibly the will of the Volusia citizens in our Charter Review Committee. My position as a county council member, our rule of law as a charter is the charter. We're a charter county. So we'll see what happens with this. Again, it's going to be up to the voters, but it just intrigues me, especially with the dialogue as this goes on, because I don't remember during the sheriff's campaign that he ever once addressed this while running for office. I don't think that ever happened. But now we're going to turn it over to the state of Volusia County, to citizens from outside. So we'll see what happens.
All right, thank you. What is your assessment of the performance of Team Volusia since it was launched in 2011?
Well, Team Volusia is our public-private partnership. And there's three pieces again. There's three legs to this. We've got the CEO Alliance, which is all private. We've got Team Volusia, which is public-private, and then we've got the county economic development. And they work in unison. For example, when we were at the table with Blue Origin, Project Panther, several years ago, the worst thing that could happen is we get another big project in there. We get a big project going, and because of the Florida Sunshine Law and public disclosure, we have to disclose everything. You know what's going to happen to the Blue Origins and the other big corporations? They're out of here. They will not allow that kind of a discussion when we are in negotiation. So they all serve their own purpose, a public-private partnership, our CEO Alliance, and our in-house. The in-house county economic development is more for expansion of current economic development. Team Volusia is our recruiting arm, and CEO Alliance is the unifying factor in between them with Dr. Kent Sharples and Hyatt Brown and the rest of that big CEO Alliance that put their own dollars into this. These are private money, hundreds of thousands of dollars on each project put in privately by the CEO Alliance to work in tandem with the county economic development and our public-private partnership. It serves a purpose. We have to have that in what we do.
All right, thank you. Mike, same question.
Can you say it again?
What is your assessment of Team Volusia and its success since it was formed in 2011?
I think it's been a good investment. I think you need that public-private togetherness. You can't, like Deb said, you can't have. I remember when the Volusia County had their own economic development arm, and they couldn't really work well. It didn't work well. I think it was DDP or something like that.
Sunshine law.
Yeah, sunshine laws. So having the public-private thing, because you don't want to have a company that's Fortune 500 company looking at us, and all of a sudden where they're coming from, they find out that, hey, listen, so-and-so is coming to, or looking at Volusia County really hard, and they're looking at real estate and all that stuff. So it works well. These guys are connected, and you can't take that away from them, and they run in different circles than what we do. And so they have these connections, and they have been working. I've seen reports of things that are here. A lot of people don't realize how much technology we have, especially in the Daytona area. They're high-paying jobs. I mean, and large warehouses and manufacturing places. So they're working off of that, and these guys are helping do that. You just don't see it. I mean, I don't think that's the problem. A lot of people just don't see it.
Right.
Well, let me just follow up with a quick 30 seconds to each one of you, because I understand the CEO Business Alliance, and I understand that that's part of the private arm that can go out and recruit without anybody seeing, have visitors without anybody seeing, fly things under the radar, so to speak. Team Volusia is not that, and they're not funded with private dollars.
Right.
They're funded with hundreds of thousands of dollars, tax dollars a year. And so I guess my question is, can you tell me what successes Team Volusia has had in bringing economic development to Volusia County?
Well, they're working all in tandem. I mean, that's the thing. They're working together, so it's two different types of organizations working together to try for the common goal, the same goal. So like I said, you got a lot of good people on there. I mean, I think Debbie Connors was on there, our executive director from the chamber at one time, and so they're like the kickoff. I mean, they're the ones who get out there and talk it up, and then you got Okay, sorry. 30 seconds.
Go ahead, Deb.
Well, I don't have their annual report in front of me, but I think you made the comment that it's public dollars. There's actually more private dollars. They have more funding partnerships now in the private industry than government dollars. So they are exceeding our expectations with private investments, and that's exactly the way it should be. So I think they're doing a pretty good job. All those projects are in their annual report. I just don't have it right now.
Okay. All right. This is a question to you, Mike. So currently, it's another sort of three-legged stool question. And that Volusia County is unique in the state in that we have 3 tourism taxing districts. We have Daytona Beach, the Daytona Beach area, New Smyrna Beach, and West Volusia. There's also a separate staff for the Ocean Center. So does that make sense?
I've been vocal in the past about why do we have 3 ad authorities, and I've gotten grief from people who, you got New Smyrna Southeast ad authority, and you got Daytona, and then you have West Volusia. They don't feel like they're being recognized or being, they're not being represented. They feel like if you live in DeLand, if you have one big ad authority, then they don't feel like they would be represented well because it would be over here near the Ocean Center. So I think the 3 ad authorities, they have their job. I'm not real happy with the fact that they changed the world's most famous beach to wide open fun. So I mean, and they spent a lot of money to do it, and it's and for I think the next 2 years the contract's for. But we have no control over that. That's different. Their ad authority, their board of directors can make those decisions. But I think that we have 3 different type of areas. I mean, you got over here on the beach side, New Smyrna, or it goes from Dunlawton, I believe, all the way south, and then the other direction, and then and then you got West Volusia, which always felt like they were, not for nothing, but like the stepchild of Volusia County. So they have their own. So I think it's working well for them over there too. I mean, you see a lot of growth all over this county actually, but I think they need that because you got to know what the needs are for that area. And I think somebody over here on southeast really wouldn't know what they need in Daytona or DeLand as far as as an ad authority.
All right, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. Volusia County, again, the perspective where we are the size of Rhode Island, so let's keep the perspective here. That's another thing with hiring the county manager. He's not coming into a little county, he's coming into the size of a state. That's who we're going to be hiring. The same with our ad authorities. We have 3 distinct areas in Volusia County that are representing, but what we have worked on, what council has demanded the last couple of years, is they work collaboratively together in some back office issues, and they have for advertising for all of Volusia County. So, but the other thing is we have no control over that. This is set by the legislature. We can talk all we want, but it's in Florida statutes where these 3 ad authorities have been birthed and are continuing to grow and to serve our citizens. So any change that happens, if you like it or you don't like it, has to happen at the legislative level. But I will tell you, I think all of our executive directors and the ad authorities right now are working tremendously collaboratively together, and we're getting some really good work product, whether we agree or disagree with that slogan. I'm kind of with you on that one. But that's what they do, and we don't get involved in their day-to-day operations.
All right, thank you. Deb, this question goes to you, and we have time for 2 more questions. So if everybody just stays put, we'll get to the final comments. So Deb, this question to you. Last year, then County Manager Jim Denys championed a significant plan to greatly increase the size of the Jim Foxman Justice Center in downtown Daytona, to get rid of the courthouse annex on City Island, and to create a new county administration building downtown as well. It carried, I think it was a $260 million price tag. Now the council is now revisiting all of this, and there are some FEMA dollars attached to the construction of a new administration building. But for this audience, a question, will whatever the county does include maintaining adequate court resources in southeast Volusia County?
Great question. First of all, it's not $260 million, it's $100 million, that if you finance it over the life of the bond would have been $260 million. But that being said, if you go back to that time when that was first, Mr. Denys had rolled that out to council, we were presented with the preferred option, to which I would then woke up at 2 o'clock in the morning the next morning and said, wait a minute, that means there's other options. I want to see the other options. Bring that back to council. We just saw them at the last meeting. To my dismay, the $100 million project was $122 million. I said, how did we increase from then to now, a year later, another $22 million? What's going on? I said, I want a parallel universe. I want to see where we're going to do some technology efficiencies. We have got to cut this. And you referred to the FEMA. What we have at stake is $6 to $12 million in FEMA reimbursements, because 250 North Beach was destroyed in the last hurricane. So FEMA says we're going to reimburse you to rebuild, but you have to rebuild that building at the same location. So what council said was, let's rebuild it with the idea that in the future it will be part of a possible complex, a courthouse complex, so we don't lose 12 million. But yes, we need a Southeast Volusia Services Center. I'm working on it. Staff, we have the land, we're looking at it. Yes, we absolutely need to do that.
All right, thank you. And Mike, same question.
Well, I mean, 100 million to 260 million for the bond. I mean, that's just, I spoke before, what do we do with the property after we move that courthouse? What do we do with that property? It is deed restricted, so hopefully it's still going to be open to the public for public use, whatever goes there. The property on Beach Street would be an ideal location because of the things that are going on down there now. I think that we have to look at, I mean, we don't want to cost, a cost like they're doing with the homeless shelter now, went almost doubled, overnight, wait, so, if we get a cost of 120 million now, what's going to be a year from now or 2 years from now? I mean, it's going to more than double. I mean, we don't know. And once you get into a project, you got to, the costs go up, monthly on projects because product goes up, labor goes up, things happen. So, we got to nail down and see how much it's going to cost. Is it going to be worth it to do this, or do we refurbish the one that we have now?
All right, thank you. And a final question for the debate, and it goes to you, Mike. The county's relationship with its cities has not always been positive. I've personally had more than one city official tell me that they think the county is a neighborhood bully when it comes to discussions on issues that affect both of them. What would you do if you were a county council member to improve the relationship between the counties and its cities, between the county and its cities?
Well, I mean, I have an open door policy. I mean, if there's issues that we can help, like ambulance service, like Port Orange just now had to put in transport because we're not being adequately helped in the ambulance service in Port Orange, and our chief came forward. But it's, it's just a matter of dialogue, keeping dialogue open. If there's something you need, give me a call. There's issues that you can help with, and somebody can't. But I don't like county overreach. I've heard people say, well, if you get up there, can you make sure this land is preserved? I'm like, that's not what the county's job is. I mean, I don't like that overreach in the cities. But if they need your help, I want them to be able to call and be able to talk to them, and maybe guide them through whatever issues they're going through, or help them with their issues. But that's what I would do as far as, I've heard that same thing too, Pat, that, sometimes they feel like they're being ignored or not appreciated or whatever as far as their city government, whatever city it is. So, I mean, that's just the kind of person I am. I'm just, you call me up, I'll talk to you.
All right, Deb, same question.
Thank you. First of all, let me give you an example. I can't speak for the rest of the county, but I'm going to talk about my district, District 3. Once a month, we have a breakfast meeting with the mayors and the managers and myself once a month. And it's a site that will not be disclosed. And we sit and we talk about a lot of issues and have a really good dialogue there. And as far as the communication goes, I think the strength is Southeast Volusia. It's in our interlocal agreements, just like the reasonable assurance plan. I will tell you, when that reasonable assurance plan came together and went to the DEP, and I have the district secretary who sits to my right on the DS, Indian River Lagoon Council, say to me, Volusia County and Southeast Volusia has done a great job. How did you do this? You just took 2 years off my planning. Which projects do you want done? Now this is a DEP asking Volusia County which of the 13 projects we submitted to help our water quality in our lagoon here do we want funded. That's because we have a good working relationship and communication and collaboration. So can we do better? We can always do better. You can always do better. But right now we are active and we're engaged as far as Southeast Volusia goes, and we'll continue to do that.
All right, we've reached the point of the debate where each of you get 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Okay. And I believe, Deb, that we agreed that you would go first, since you went first at the first question.
Yeah.
So it's all yours, Deb.
Do I have 90 seconds? What do I have?
2 minutes.
2 minutes. Okay. First off, I'd like to thank the News Journal and Pat Rice, as well as the Brandon Center, for hosting tonight's debate. Thank you. More importantly, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to come out tonight and engage in the political process and hear where we stand on the issues in the discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, you have an important decision to make in this election, a decision that will affect everything from our growth and prosperity in our community's future to our environmental protections and our pocketbooks. My opponent has said, and I have a printout right here, he said that keeping taxes low isn't responsible. If you agree, then vote for him. If you like having no tax increase in the general fund this year, then vote for Deb. If you like fiscal restraint and eliminating all debt in the general fund, the only county statewide to have done that this year, then vote for Deb. If you think it's good that we've engaged on the Indian River Lagoon Council, then vote for Deb. If you like that the Turnbull Bay Bridge was successfully replaced with no 6.1 mile detour as was originally proposed, then vote for Deb. If you like that this council fixed pay inequities for our employees that was able to fund well-deserved raises for our deputies and dispatch, then vote for Deb. In fact, after tonight, I'm going to point, if you go to Deb Denys for Volusia County Council Facebook page, I'm going to repost our sheriff's video where he thanked the county council for the good work that we have done. I'm going to repost that video. It's actually really, really good. It speaks volumes. If you enjoy walking on a brand new Smyrna Dunes boardwalk, then vote for Deb. If you enjoy fishing off the new fishing pier, then vote for Deb. And if you like that Park Avenue in Edgewater will be 3-lane to open up the industrial complex and pave the way for jobs creation, then vote for Deb. And if you like the county's continuing support of septic to sewer funding for Oak Hill, then vote for me, Deb Denys. Again, I'd like to thank you for coming out tonight, and I'd like to thank you for your support. I will be honored to serve another term as your District 3 representative on the Volusia County Council, should you give me that honor. Thank you so much.
I should thank Pat for inviting me, and I thank you all for coming out tonight. I know it's Monday night, and it's not the best thing to come off the weekend and come to an event like this. I'm running because of the lack of transparency we had in this county council, and along with the county manager. We found a lot of issues were coming up one at a time, one after another, and they didn't seem to be addressed. Impact fees were one of them. And, you know, something that should have been done 2 years ago wasn't done. You know, the ME's office lost its accreditation 5 years ago, and it still is not accredited. It needs a larger facility, and it needs better working conditions. There's a lot of issues that, you know, beach driving is definitely a big one. This whole area grew because of beach driving. This council agreed and gave 410 feet to Hard Rock, and that was last year. So, you know, when I tell you something, you can take it to the bank. And I just hope that when you go to the polls, when you vote, that you look at new eyes looking at these same issues that we have with a different perspective. And that's what I'll bring. So I hope to get your vote. I thank you guys for coming out. Have a great week.
All right. Thank you. All right, we've reached the end of the debate, but just 1 second. All right.
That's good.
All right, thanks. Listen, I want to first, let's give one more round of applause to these candidates for a good job. And I do want to thank everybody for coming out. I know it's a Monday night. Any night during the week, you already worked a full day probably, and here you are, and I think that really speaks highly of you as voters and citizens. So with that, I want to thank New Smyrna Beach one more time for letting us use this facility. Give New Smyrna Beach a hand. And have a great rest of your night.